Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. It is full-time at the Berkey Queer and finished 2-1 to the Hoops, Kev. What do we take from that game? What did we learn? Did we learn anything from that game? Was it just a decent kick about? Some decent moments, first half and second half. Chance to see a new player in Namura seems to have changed a few people's opinions. But what's your view on the second half of the match overall?
Well, probably the biggest takeaway of it all is that your Irish Gaelic is just horrendous, and you should stop trying to pronounce the name of the stadium.
It really is bad. It really is bad. Yeah.
I'll get in there before Paddy Lavery rips you a new one for that. But yeah, I think right, if you're going to review the game, you called it straight before we came on here. It was the game of two halves. You had the first half where it was probably what's our strongest 11 of players that are available at the moment, considering we've got players that are getting extended summer break. Excuse me, boys that have got an extended summer break, new signings that haven't travelled out for this game, and a couple of boys that are carrying injuries. So that was like the strongest team, and we took the game to a side that's 23 games into their season. We did control possession. We controlled that first half, and comfortably ahead at the break, in terms of how the game was going, if not in the scoreline. Then the second half, it's basically it's an under-21 side that's playing that match. It wasn't the most thrilling of second halves. I don't know that too many of the young boys that played in that half will really stood out in any way that's made Brendan sit up and take notice of them. But let's not be too harsh on them, because we were saying that pre-match and at halftime, we're not really going to judge anyone on what happens in this game in terms of long-term future or settling into the team. It just, wasn't a great half of football to watch. But then it's an under-21 team basically that's played that, and they've held their own in this game. They drew the second half 1-1, and I think we can all be grateful that whoever it was that got the winning goal, because in Premier Sports they weren't sure. Whoever it is that got it has spared us. I think that's what they settled on at the end here as well. So Donovan spared us penalty shootouts, which I think we can all be thankful for.
Yes, still traumatised at the last penalty shootout I watched. No, I think you're right. I think, look, we would keep this in context. We're not going to be too down on any of the players or even the performance. First half, I thought showed more impetus than what we saw against Queen's Park. I appreciate you didn't see that game, Kev, but I thought on evidence of the first half, we looked at a side with more attacking intent. As you can hear, my dog doesn't agree. But side with more attacking intent. We looked more prepared to take risks. So it was a bit more invention. Namura, who I think is going to be probably the key takeaway from tonight's game, right, is the fact we got to get our first impressions of Namura, and I think he certainly on that very limited evidence. And again, we keep it in context. It's 45 minutes of a pre-season friendly, but I think a lot of people don't have quite the same anxieties around Namura at this point. But we do need to see more of him throughout pre-season. But I don't think he did anything tonight to give us undue concern. Similarly, I think with a few bright spots, Ben Summers, I think first half looked every bit the player who's played some senior football in the past 12 months, which was great. Couple of shaky moments from players, Dane Murray, possibly Ross Doohan second half, looking a wee bit shaky at times. Stephen Welsh, and look, we do wish Stephen Welsh all the best if it is an injury. We don't like to see any of our players injured. I know that he's getting a few pelters in the comments. We've got to remember this is just a young footballer. But Paul John, who we gave copious amounts of praise for his chat comments earlier, he did make the point that Stephen Welsh has been at the club for 7 years now. This is his 7th season as essentially a senior pro, some of that on loan. I think, Kevin, that there does come a point where if you're not going to make it after 7 years, you're not going to make it at the club, right? I mean, I think that has to be the consensus. But look, tonight we just wish him well in terms of his injury. Wasn't through any fault of his own that happened. Yeah, it was a strange one tonight. I say a few things to take from first half, second half, very much I think about fitness.
Yeah, I was going to say to you that you better be careful what you say about Stephen Welsh and what Paul John was saying about him in the group chat. Or
Yeah,
what I was saying about him in the group chat. It wasn't always the most complimentary.
that was
Yeah, I
the
think
only
Welsh.
broadcastable one.
I think with Welsh, his days are probably numbered. The fact that he doesn't start this game and that Dane Murray starts ahead of him, to me suggests that Murray's ahead of him in the queue. You've still got obviously Carter Vickers, you've got Scales, Inamura can play left centre back. I think he's a wee bit down the pecking order. He got bullied and ragdolled for the goal by a 17-year-old, and it's just poor awareness all round. So, listen, I know it's a friendly game, but that was a very simple ball that was played through. Just clear your lines. I know Doohan didn't cover himself in glory either. He's not commanded that situation. So, yeah, between the two of them, they've messed that one up. Excuse me. So yeah, I think his time is probably up. But yeah, as you say, the biggest takeaway from this game is it's about fitness. We've got minutes in the legs of the first team players. We've seen the young boys compete, if nothing else, against Cork in the second half. Maybe none of them really shone that much in the second half, but again, at the same point, I don't think any of them were particularly worse than anyone else out in the park. It was just a very kind of average performance all round. And we'll move on to the next game against Sporting Lisbon, which I think is in 8 days' time or so.
You're right, yep.
Maybe by then we'll have a new player through the door that might play as well, or we might get KT or Nygren in the team. So it's pre-season. It's all just about building momentum up to when the season actually starts, and another win can only help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll bring in a few of the comments here, Paul. Just I think echoing some of what we said about Stephen Welsh saying, I'm very sorry that Welsh looks like he's done his shoulder again. It does, however, take nothing away from the fact the guy's not Celtic class and must be sold. I think the rumours are that he may be going back to, is it Mechelen, the team that he played in on loan previously. Yeah. However, obviously the fear is now that if that injury is serious, then that could derail any potential move. But yeah, obviously, from a health standpoint, we wish the player well. Going into, I'll have to be careful some of the comments I bring up here. Brendan McCarthy comes in and says, poor Stephen Welsh, hope it's not a bad injury, but a terrible decision for Cork's goal. Yep, as Kevin said, I think you're expecting your senior player, and I think Welsh was actually the most experienced player in that second half in terms of senior appearances and senior football, so you would be expecting him to
maybe more experience.
Who would be
He's up there anyway.
Yeah, possibly.
Trust Doohan, maybe.
Yeah, I'm probably thinking Welsh more in terms of being at Celtic, but yeah, you're probably right. Urban Culture comes in to say, no one remembers how you win cups, winning's everything. First leg of the quadruple. Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, our rivals across the water would absolutely be claiming it, so why not? Paul Maguire comes in. Welcome to the channel, Paul. Hill trip's not a bad run out. Yeah, I think it's fine. It's like I say, it's just a case of getting minutes into the legs, getting some exposure for the young lads. And I think as the games progress and we go into the games in Portugal and beyond, we'll start seeing more of the first team players in there. Thomas Burns coming in to say, first trophy of the season, we could do a treble before the season starts. Now, come on, we're sounding like another team when we start talking like that. Let's be sensible. This somebody wasn't impressed with Ross Doohan. Doohan, a wacky, wavy, inflatable arm guy, looks a right flapper. He did look a wee bit nervous at some of the cross balls. There was two in particular. One where he flattened Welsh, and then another one where it kind of, it was one that was curling in, but it didn't look too comfortable. And he's been a player that's been getting some praise for his ability in training. I think Luke McCowan maybe might have been was praising Ross Doohan. Look, we know he's got quality. He is just coming in as a friendly, but yeah, he didn't look quite as assured as you maybe hoped in some of those situations, Kev. And he's got competition because Sinisalo's, very favourable in the eyes of many supporters, and we've got Casper to come back.
Yeah, I think Doohan's been brought in to be third choice. So, in one sense, I'm not overly concerned by his performance because I don't think he'll get very many minutes throughout the course of the season. Schmeichel will be number one, Sinisalo's number two, Doohan very much third choice. But I know we've mentioned a few times, it's only pre-season. Let's not get too carried away.
Absolutely.
When a fairly simple cross ball comes into the middle of the box, though, your keeper should be coming out and claiming it. And with both those instances that you mentioned I had flashbacks to Rob Douglas at that infamous 5-1 mauling at Ibrox under Martin O'Neill, where he was 6'5" when the cross came in and 5'6" after he jumped for it. And it looked a bit similar there with Doohan. He was just coming and getting nowhere near it. He was not commanding. And if you add that in with the goal as well, he either gives Welsh a shout to just kind of jockey it back or let it go and then doesn't come out and claim it, or he doesn't give Welsh any help at all. So as much as I'll be critical of Welsh, he'll be critical of Doohan for that. And it doesn't matter if it's pre-season or the 38th game of the league season. Those mistakes shouldn't happen. That goal shouldn't be conceded, especially not by your two most senior players in the park. So it's a concern. It would be more of a concern if I thought he'd actually get minutes for us this season. So I can kind of let it slide just now.
Yeah, it's fair enough. And we don't want to criticise too many players. More, we want to observe how they did and what we what we observed in terms of their performance. Chris D comes in actually a comment. This takes my next talking point. Osman wants too many touches in the ball before shooting. Needs to quicken himself up. I actually thought we saw some very good elements to Osman, plus some maybe elements that need developing. I thought one of his first touches when he brought the ball down, controlled it absolutely superbly and gave himself a great opportunity to score in that second half. Absolutely fluffed the shot. I'm sure he'd be the first to admit that. He just didn't get the connection or the power, whereas it was begging to be lifted over the goal, over the keeper rather. But showed good pace, good movement. I thought his touch at times was pretty good. And he looked hungry. It looked as though he would have done anything for a goal tonight. It was, snatching at chances. Showed a wee bit of greed at one point, and it was pointed out on the Premier Sports commentary that he's been a greedy boy. In my opinion, this is just my view. I like my strikers to be greedy. I want my strikers being greedy. I don't necessarily always like my creative players being too greedy if there's a better option. But when you're the striker, when you're the focal point of attack, be greedy. I'm all for that. What did you make of the limited sort of minutes he had tonight?
Yeah. On the point that you've just made there with that chance where he's greedy, I've written down a note about that one. And I'm happy with what he did as well. I'm with you on that one. He's a young lad. I thought his movement off the ball was pretty decent. He was taking up good space again to try and receive passes. His first touch was all right, and he really desperately wanted to score. You could see that, and with that chance that you referenced, that's why he takes it on, I think, because he was just so desperate to score. There was a pass on, you're right, and in 5 years' time, he'll play that pass because he'll be an experienced or a more experienced professional. Hopefully, he'll have had 100 odd games under his belt at Celtic, and he'll be a regular goal scorer by that point. But in 5 years' time, when he's a more experienced player, he plays that pass. He's, what is he, 18, 19 years old, something like that. He's a young lad. Yeah. So he's a young lad. He's all about scoring goals, and I want to see that from my centre forwards. Actually, when I watched some of the games from last season, there were times when I would be pulling my hair out at Ida or Kyogo or even Johnny Kenny towards the end, where they've maybe played an extra pass. Just shoot. You're a forward. Your job's to score goals. So I think he's young, he's hungry to score, and I do like to see that. So I had no issues with him taking that one on. And he didn't have a bad game. Thought he was all right. And we'll just see how he develops over the course of the season. Again, like Doohan will be third choice goalkeeper. Osman will be third, maybe even fourth choice centre forward. So what he does tonight, I'm not overly concerned about as to how that's going to affect the first team as the season goes on. But it's just encouraging to see a young player get on and, like you say, show that hunger and desire to want to do well.
Yeah. The one question, Kev, because we talk about the fact that some of these players might be third or fourth choice. When we go into the season, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about should we utilise some of these players more in the cup games, have almost a cup game squad. Liverpool kind of famous for doing it. That's how, Kelleher, the goalkeeper at the time at Liverpool, got so many minutes because he was very much the cup goalkeeper. A lot of English teams kind of follow that model. Is that something we should do when we look at the League Cup? A lot of folks say, we want to win the treble. We want to give ourselves the best chance of winning every trophy. Now, I'm not talking about promoting the youngest players there. Like, I'm not saying, you bring in young Daly, who made his debut at 16, and put him right into the team for, a League Cup clash. But when you're looking at guys like Osmond, when you're looking at guys, maybe like Kyle Ewer, for example, who you think are maybe just on the periphery, just not quite there. Is the League Cup the kind of competition that's a perfect platform to bring these guys in? Maybe a combination of some of these guys with some of the more senior players to help see them through it. Because third or fourth choice potentially means that you're not getting enough minutes to really develop without going on loan. So is that something that you think Celtic should be leveraging? Or is the expectation level for supporters just too high?
Well, personally, I would love to see it. I'd love to see us give the young boys more of a game in the cup, in the League Cup. I obviously want to win it, so I wouldn't put out, the team that started the second half tonight would not be my team that starts in the League Cup game. I'm not going to sacrifice the cup just to give these young players one game. But I think mixing the team up a bit and giving 3, 4, 5 of them a start and then having another few on the bench is a good thing. Again, going back to Martin O'Neill, I think it maybe his first season would play Hearts in the League Cup, and he gives the likes of Sean Maloney, Jamie Smith, Stephen Craney, Simon Lynch, gives them games.
That's right.
I think we win the game 3-1, 4-2, something like that. Anyway, we won the game.
I remember Craney scoring
Maloney scores. Yeah, Maloney, Lynch and Craney all score, if I mind right. So we've done it in the past. I think we've got some decent young players, and the only way they'll get better is if we give them minutes in competitive games. So, yeah, put McArdle in the midfield alongside McGregor and Engels, or McGregor and one other. McArdle's going to get his 90 minutes and he's going to improve as a player. Put a centre-back in there, put Dane Murray then, alongside Carter Vickers. Vickers has got to step his game up as well to get Murray through it. So you're going to benefit the experienced Pro 2. So yeah. I think it's something we should do. It's the way we're going to improve those players. It's the way they're going to show that they're good enough to be in the team. And since you use Liverpool as an example, a player that came to my mind as soon as you were saying it was Bobby Clark, who Liverpool sold after playing 14 games for them. I just checked this out, that's how I know. They sold him to RB Salzburg for 10 million and he played 14 games. So these are all League Cup games or lesser league games. I'm not going to say that we're going to sell McArdle for 10 million after 14 games for us or anything daft like that. But you put these boys in the shop window. So if they aren't going to make it for us, they've at least got the experience of playing for Celtic and they won't be duds because they wouldn't get in the team in the first place if they were. So you're actually then going to increase the revenue that you can get for them. At worst, at best, you improve them as players and they become first-team regulars, which is what we all want to see.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that's the point. I think there's a real opportunity there, and you want to give these guys the best platform to showcase what they can do. And the expectations are huge at our club, so it is very, very difficult for a manager to say I'm going to take a risk by playing what could be perceived as a weakened side in a cup game, because as we know, there's no easy games at this club. But I still think that's the right platform, with the absence of reserve league, with the absence of being able to send every player out on loan, because logistically that's not possible. You kind of want us to give these players just the minutes and the exposure to first team competitive level football alongside the existing first team players to show them the level they need to aspire to. And actually, you might find some will grasp that opportunity and absolutely run with it. And you're right, that's how we discovered guys like Sean Maloney, Stephen Craney, etc., who went on to have good and decent careers. Let's get a few of the comments in. That's one there I'm very keen to bring up because we can give them continual pelters all season if it plays out. And it is, of course, our own Kevin Graham. And now that he's put it up, he's probably deleted it because I can't see it. But Kevin's... here we go. I found it. Kev Graham, tell you would never see Inamura in a Celtic jersey. Now, this is... I think Kev might even be referencing what he said on today's bulletin, that we'd never see him. And I think the general consensus is... And look, we still might never see him, play a first team appearance. We don't know how he's performing in training. We don't know how he'll do for the rest of the pre-season if he gets opportunities. But certainly the signs tonight were promising. So, Kev, yeah, you're going to get many pelters for that. We'll bookmark that and we'll see what happens in the season. Of course, if he doesn't play, Kev will come back and tell us that he told us so. So We'll see. Square Sausage comes in and says friendlies mean nothing. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's about getting fitness, but at the same time, it's nice to see the boys back playing in the hoops. Monty, regular on here, comes back and says, did Osman get any minutes? Yeah, he played the second half, Monty. A few good touches. Myself and Kevin were both impressed by his desire to go and try and get a goal, although he wasn't lucky enough, but got into some good positions. Maestro95 comes in to say, every game Celtic play, we must win. That's the difference between elite and what might have been mentality. I agree with that, but I still think at the same time, when you look at a club that's as successful as Liverpool, and I'll use them as an example again, they are also thinking long term. They are thinking, how do we get these guys that are on the periphery, more game time, which is why we spoke about the League Cup, leveraging the League Cup or leveraging cup competitions, because I don't think pre-season friendlies is enough to judge these guys over the long term. Let's see if we get any more comments here. They're coming in thick and fast. Thank you everybody for coming in and commenting tonight. I know it was a bit of a dodgy time. James Devine, welcome mate, good to see you. Please calm down. It's a pre-season game. Let's give the young boys on and see what they are made of and hope they will improve. Yeah, I think it's fair enough. I don't think anybody's taking a knee-jerk reaction, James. I think we're just, we're looking at ways to try and elevate these players up to the level that you want them to get to, because, and it was even mentioned on commentary, Kev, there is a huge gap now in terms of when we brought through the last academy player that made a first team impression. We've got Callum McGregor obviously on tonight, Jamesy Forrest was on tonight, Kieran Tierney's back at the club, but they're the most recent players to come through from the academy, and you're kind of looking at this batch and thinking, who's ready to make that step up? Who's closest? We've mentioned Kyle Ewer, Ben Summers very much in the frame. The young boy Daly, 16, coming through. McCardle got some game time towards the end of last season. So it's great to see these guys starting to get game time, but you're looking for that one where you can almost pinpoint and say, he's the next one, right? And it's just about getting the right platform and the right amount of exposure to have that. Is that anyone you think you'd look at based on tonight's evidence, Kev, and say, I'm keen to see more of him? Not going to ask you to play put your cards on the table and say he'll be the next one, but who, to look over the full course of the game, who really stood out tonight, and who would you be keen to see more of going forward?
In terms of the young players, from tonight, Ben Summers was the only one. And that's going to be probably a very critical comment to make. But based on what we saw, the 45 minutes that both teams played, Ben Summers was, for me anyway, the standout of the young players. I thought he looked really good when he was receiving the ball. He's got good awareness of what's around him, and he was playing some really good through passes for Johnny Kenny, which created a few opportunities. Kenny was unlucky, I think, not to capitalise more with them. It was some good defending or a good save here and there. But Summers was the one, for me, that looked most impressive. That said, I'm not sure how many minutes he gets for the first team this season, because it's going to have big competition. Maeda's coming back. You've got Jota to come back from injury. Nygren, although maybe more central, will certainly take up a role in that attacking three that we've got. Then you've got Jamesy Forrest, and I think his opportunities will be fairly limited. But he was the one that impressed me the most out of the young players. Inamura, we've spoken about him a lot. I know not a young player of our making, not a youth graduate, but he impressed. And in the second half, I'm going to say nobody really stood out for me. I don't think anyone was particularly poor, but no one was particularly great. In fact, maybe the one that did out of that in the second half was Mitchell Robertson. I did have a note about him. I thought he was fairly aggressive in his play and trying to get forward. Again, coming in from the right, played a couple of decent through balls for Osman to try and get on the end of and try to make things happen. But no one really stood out. So I'm going to say that was a disappointment for me, because I wanted to see more from you and McCardle and Turley when they were on the park. Didn't happen tonight, but that's okay, because it's only 45 minutes in a friendly against Cork. They will get other chances, I'm sure, as the pre-season goes on. And they're going to get chances against Sporting Lisbon, against Como, against Newcastle United. It's bigger opposition, and we'll see how they fare there. But from tonight, I'm going to say, no one's really pushed the needle for me.
Yeah, although we want to give credit to Kyle Ure for his assist for Donovan's goal as well. Actually, two good headers in the box, which don't get opportunities to do that too often. But yeah, I think we always point out it's very easy for us to sit here on our comfy chairs and say, yeah, these young fellas, we'd expected more out of them. But I think we recognise it's very, very difficult, and we're the top club in the country, and the standards have got to be at their absolute highest. So it is very, very difficult to make that grade. And we wish the young guys all the best going forward into the new season. Hopefully, we'll see more minutes from as the season progresses. Although Kevin Graham comes in and says we won't see any of these youngsters again until timed that almost to perfection. We won't see any of these youngsters again until they play against us for Falkirk or Ayr or St Johnstone in the cup tie for a few years from now. Kev, playing up to the Mr. Cynical role. But yeah, it could be right. We have seen plenty of examples of players who just simply haven't made it, but they've actually gone on to have recent, fairly decent careers, and other clubs. So Urban Culture comes in on with a counterpoint, says you'll see some of these young lads this season on the bench in Champions League nights. Oh, we've got a cynical bunch in tonight. We certainly do, but they're probably not wrong. Let's be honest. And Maestro 95, I think this is something we've spoken about quite a lot. Get them out on loan to feel the reality, and I think that might be the reason why we pinpointed Ben Summers. He certainly looked like, for me, it was his movement, the way he read the game tonight, Kev. I thought he looked more prepared to take responsibility tonight than some of the other young fellas. So I thought that was evident. A few people point to the fact he doesn't necessarily demonstrate as much pace as he would like. I think if you've got good game intelligence, you've got good ability to read the game and anticipate where you're going to go next. I think pace, you can circumvent pace a little bit. Even in our system, I think players like Tom Rogic and Matt O'Reilly were very, very good at that. Not blessed with great pace, but their invention, their ability to read a game and determine a situation, they were very, very good at that. You'd want to see someone like Ben Summers maybe come through and show those qualities. But as we say, hopefully we'll see more from a few of these players towards Lisbon. Talking about the Lisbon game, then, would you expect to see more of our first team playing in that game? Is that going to be more of a competitive fixture than what we saw tonight? And is that a game you're looking forward to?
Yeah, on both your questions there, I would expect it to be more of a regular first team that plays. Just depends how far along or how far away, rather, those first teamers that have missed these two games are from fitness. But I would think we'd go as strong a team as we possibly could from the start against Sporting Lisbon. I would say that because one of the commenters put in there as well that something about us. Celtic will never accept losing a game. There was a comment sort of like that in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we will start our first strength team because he's right. There used to be the thing anyway with Celtic that we played friendlies as if they were competitive games and we didn't want to lose. We want to uphold our honour in these games. And I still think that exists to a degree. So I would think as we're getting closer to the start of the season and these friendly games will become fewer and further between, the opportunity to get match fitness in the first team players also diminishes. So we need to get them out there. So I would say, yeah, you'll go as strong a team as you possibly can in that game. Again, with the caveat that you'll have 14 players on the bench or whatever it is, and we'll probably make a full raft of changes and everyone will get some game time.
Yeah.
Am I looking forward to it? I always look forward to Celtic playing Chris.
Absolutely.
Always.
Yeah.
Even if it's a pre-season friendly, where almost personally I wouldn't care if we win, lose or draw to a degree. It's a game about fitness. But I always look forward to watching us play. So yes, I am looking forward to that. And it's Celtic I look forward to watching play, not Sporting Lisbon.
Quite right. Absolutely. Amen. Let's get a couple of last comments in, then we'll call it a night because I'm getting shouted for my dinner. It's one of these games at the time. I want to bring in River Sea because I like this comment. It's there are a few gems in there. I could see players like Summers and Borum do good work for us in the future. That's a nice positive one to finish on. Let's see, and Green Machine, it's all about levels, and Celtic has given these lads a platform to showcase their talents, and if they do end up a Falkirk Killie, that's a good level. Hey, listen, look, even if it benefits Scottish football, I think as the top club, we've also got that responsibility to try and bring through the best possible talent. Even if they don't make it at our club, we want them to go on and do well and have decent careers. So I think that's important. Listen, we are over 1,300 strong again for pre-season friendly. It's been incredible the amount of support we've had for these friendly coverages. We will be continuing that for the Sporting Lisbon games, or for the games in Portugal. And we'll be back tomorrow again for the 12:30 bulletin with, I believe, Big Yowie Hughes and young Patrick. So look forward to that. Thank you again, every single person that commented and watched along with us. Really appreciate your support as always. And thank you once again to Kevin McCluskey for joining me on a Celtic State of Mind.